Hello, everyone. Welcome to the IAB Make Mobile Work webinar series. For today's webinar, we'll be speaking about how to leverage a captive audience on apps. My name is Eva Wu, Director at the IAB Mobile Center of Excellence, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. We've got a great lineup of thought leaders who will be speaking today, and I'll introduce them one by one before their respective segment. A couple notes on logistics before we get started. So everyone is currently muted. If you would like to ask a question, please write to us through the Q&A window on the control panel. We'll answer some questions as we go along and also queue up some for the Q&A session at the end. One of the questions we get a lot is whether a recording of the webinar will be available. And we'd like to let you know upfront that the answer is yes. So we'll send you a follow-up email with the recording after the webinar. Before we get started, I just wanted to provide you with some background on the IAB Make Mobile Work webinar initiative. The Make Mobile Work webinar series is a major initiative out of the IAB Mobile Center. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the IAB Mobile Center, it is the mobile hub within the IAB. And our mission is to drive the growth of mobile advertising, marketing, and media. The Make Mobile Work webinar series aims to provide marketers and publishers with practical and jargon-free advice on making mobile advertising work for them in an increasingly mobile always, omni-screen world. IAB started the webinar series about 3 years ago when we were trying to make mobile mainstream. And now mobile is an indispensable component of digital media. So many companies have become masters of creating experiences optimized for mobile users. However, many in the industry still struggle to keep up with the increasing user intention on mobile devices. So for today's webinar, our focus is on mobile apps. And apps play an important role in our digital life today. So comScore actually just recently published, actually last month, in their mobile app report that says about more than 50% of digital time spent is actually in apps. And timeshare of apps is only likely to grow because of the increasing adoption of IoT and connected devices, which are app-driven. So IAB has been paying attention to this space and created an app marketing working group. And in April this year, the working group published an IAB app marketing top evaluation criteria document. And this document provides app marketers with a list of questions they should ask media and advertising providers in order to run a successful campaign. And so for the agenda for today, we'll first hear about some fresh insights from a recent research study on how consumers behave in apps, which will inform your decisions on how to engage with them best. And then following that, we'll discuss how brands can build deeper relationships with users through branded apps, and an interesting case study about how a real estate marketer was able to expand their user base through insights gained from apps. And we'll wrap up with a presentation on creative best practices in apps and give you some ideas of the current capabilities in the marketplace and inspire your imagination on how to create an optimal user experience for apps. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session, but as I mentioned, feel free to ask questions and send us your comments anytime throughout the webinar through the Q&A panel, and no need to wait until the end, because we'll address some of the questions along the way. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nick Watson, Director of Research from IPSOS, who will walk us through some enlightening insights from a recent research study they have conducted. Nick, take it away.
Thanks, Eva. Hi, everybody. Really pleased to share our results of our recent app audience study with you today. So as Eva said, my name's Nick Watson, a director from Ipsos Mori, who are a global market research company. And I specialize in our Connect division, which is responsible for helping our clients really understand the world of media, brand, and communications. And so today I'm going to walk you through some of our most interesting and thought-provoking takeouts from our app audience research that we partnered with Google on. But before we delve into those findings, I just wanted to share a few sets with you, everyone, which really helps sort of underline the premise of our research. So according to Zenith's media consumption forecasts, mobile internet use will account for 26% of global media consumption in 2019. And people around the world will spend on average a staggering 122 minutes a day accessing the mobile internet via browsers and apps. And that is massive from where we were sort of 7 years ago, when in 2010 it was just 10 minutes a day. So that same Zenith report also forecasts that 71% of all internet consumption will be via mobile in 2017. And I really think that it's these types of statistics that really highlight the importance of mobile. I assume that everybody on this webinar, has a smartphone, and really it's, I think we can all appreciate that the screen in our hands really is that gateway to our online world now. It's, the first choice for us to answer any questions, accomplish any tasks, stay informed, and really keep us entertained as well. So powerful statistics for our industry, and something that we really wanted to explore in more detail with Google. So we go to the next slide, Eva. So as consumers live their lives increasingly on their smartphone, what we really wanted to understand was the role that apps play. So specifically, we wanted to gain a really broad understanding of app usage and how this differs by market. So we surveyed users across 6 different countries, which were the UK, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and the US. For today's presentation, what we're looking at is just the US specific results, but the full report can be found on our IPSOS website. One key point with the research is that we excluded social from our app categories that we looked at. And the reason why we excluded social is really because there's so much out there on sort of social usage and behavior that we wanted to make sure that we look beyond this. So what we did is we focused on 4 key app categories, which were news, games, entertainment, and sports, to really give us a much broader view of app uses in general. So what did we learn? We go to the next slide. Okay, so I guess we've all heard marketers say that apps offer limited opportunities to reach and engage audiences, but our research actually shows that's not necessarily true. And today I want to share some of the things that we've learned. So specifically looking at who uses apps, the types of apps people use, how much time they're spending in app and how often, and then also users' engagements with apps across the day. So our first headline from our study actually showed us that apps are universal. So with media consumption growing significantly, it's really no surprise that nearly everybody who uses a smartphone uses an app. And I think it's now fair to say that smartphone users and app users are nearly one and the same. And almost all smartphone users access apps, which again applies to both men and women, and across all different age groups. And I really think that this starts to dispel that myth of that typical stereotype of an app user who, some tend to believe are sort of the young and the tech savvy segment. It's a much broader audience than that we're looking at these days. Next slide. And because everybody uses apps, this means that we could actually show that app users share the same socioeconomic profile as smartphone users. So app users are in work, they're educated, they're affluent. 69% claim to have the highest income in their household, and 81% actually claim to be the main shopper in their household. And it's, for these people, apps are like the new normal. It's part of their daily routine. They offer stimulating ways to sort of interact with the digital world through games and entertainment, but they also keep users informed about what's going on around them through news and other like apps. So the next key statistic in our research shows us that women use apps, and this is something that I wanted to build on from earlier. And again, this is not just young women, this is women of all ages. So more than 9 in 10 female smartphone users engage with apps, and usage really is consistent across all of those different age groups. In addition, what we can see is that over 8 in 10 sort of identify as the main shopper within their household as well. And I think there's a really strong argument that could be made here in terms of the sort of the largely untapped opportunity for app brand visibility and positioning with such a valuable audience. So we all know that social plays a role in app usage. However, what was most interesting to us in this research is that apps are so much more than just social. Over 2/3 of the total smartphone audience that we surveyed actually claimed to use news, games, entertainments, or sports apps. Gaming apps are particularly popular as well, particularly the ones that are sort of, your short and straightforward one, the casual gaming, the puzzle gamings, the ones that sort of can be played, dips in and out of and played whilst people are doing other activities. And what this slide shows here is the profile of app usage amongst men and women, where we can see things like sport apps are predictably a little bit more popular with men, but gaming is actually more prevalent with women, which brings us really nicely onto our next point. And that next point is, contrary to popular stereotypes, our research really found that women are more likely than men to play games via an app. So of all women smartphone users, we found that 46% actually play games, and that's compared to 42% of men. And overall, what we can see, and what we saw from the slide previously, is that women make up just over half of the gaming app user base, which we saw on that previous slide, which was 52%. So game app usage amongst females also spans across all ages. Sort of a little bit predictable that it's slightly highest amongst those aged 18 to 34. But there's there is little variability across the other age groups that we surveyed. And actually what we saw is that when we look at our oldest age group, so those aged 55 to 64, more than half of female smartphone users actually use gaming apps. Again, if we think that we bring it back to what we talked about earlier, in that 8 in 10 identify as the main shopper within their household, it really feels that there's a great opportunity to engage with sort of a lucrative segment, and perhaps to be able to even do that through gaming apps. So now, slightly shifting the focus and looking more specifically at behaviors, our research was able to identify that people use apps in interesting and really diverse ways. So for us, knowing that apps are popular with both genders and all ages is really helpful. But perhaps knowing when and where people access their apps during the day sort of really allows us to add that extra depth, and hopefully gives marketers a better sense of how to engage with those consumers across categories throughout the day as well. So this research identified that people tend to be in a relaxed mindset when they're using apps, but we also saw specific behaviors as well. So, for example, in gaming and sports apps, we saw that these tend to be used whilst people were watching TV. But for news and entertainment app usage was focused more around specific parts of the day. We go next slide. Yep. So apps also, are habitual. They're part of our daily routine now. The three columns that we're looking at here are the average number of claimed levels of minutes spent within each app category. So that's on the left-hand side. The number of times people use each app category throughout the day, and then finally the percentage of those who use the app category at least once a day. And again, really, really strong statistics here, and because what we can see is that 80% of game app users and 72% of news app users access them every day. And if you think about that in terms of eyeballs, that's a ton of eyeballs who are looking at these apps. And again, particularly interesting for the game segment, given that on average, they claim to spend 62 minutes per day playing gaming apps. So in summary, I hope you all agree that apps are a really important part of consumers' lives. They're really well integrated into how we live our lives and how we go about our day. So in the smartphone world, apps really are for everyone. App users are just as likely to be women as men, and usage again spreads across all of those different age groups. App users are in work, they're educated and affluent, and for these people, apps are the new normal. They offer those stimulating ways to interact with the digital world whilst keeping users informed about what's going on in the real life. And as universally as they use, different app categories really drive different behaviors. So we would like to really think that this research is just the beginning. It's the foundation, and understanding sort of how widespread app usage is and how closely it matches smartphone use really provides a platform for brands and marketers to be able to investigate more in this area. And in the world of mobile apps, again, there really is something for everyone. The amount and variety of apps and the diversity of their usage provides great opportunities for brands to build those meaningful relationships with their key target audiences.
Great. Thank you very much, Nick. And I think those are some very interesting data that you shared here. And we have a better understanding of for the kind of app users and how are they using different categories of apps. So I think that is a great segue. And our next presenter will build off of it and share with us a real life case study on how a brand used data from apps to expand their user base and why it is important for brands to have a presence on apps. I'd like to introduce Inan Horwitz, Director of Business Development at Startapp. Inan?
And app developers. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think you were on mute for a second. Yeah, if you would like to reintroduce yourself.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Inan Horwitz here with Startapp. Nick, great talk. Thank you very much for sharing all this knowledge with us. Definitely insightful and showing how the app economy and app ecosystem is moving forwards, also with marketers and brands. We wanted to share with you some insights that we gathered. So Startapp is a mobile data platform for app developers, helps them fill user gaps about their users and helps marketers target users according to different app audiences that they have. We've been with the mobile app space for close to 7 years now, and I personally worked with working with different app developers for more than 5 years. Today we will share with you some internal insights about the app ecosystem, as well as a short case study that we did with a major real estate brand to find new users to sign up to talk to an agent for buying a house or an apartment. This is a bit different than the games, news, social that Nick presented to us. So, did you all know that more than 90 of the top 100 global brands have already launched at least one app? Eva, can you move a slide?
Yes.
Thank you. 86% of those users actually the time spent within the apps. So again, the apps ecosystem it's not a campaign. It's a new channel. So for brands, for marketers, just as like Instagram is a channel for you guys, the app ecosystem is definitely another way for you to reach your users and communicate with them. Next slide, please. I wanted to share with you a few examples of how different brands are using the app ecosystem We see Nike doing an amazing job with new engagement with their users and connecting social to their app. They make it very unique for their users by creating new content, so only the app users of their brand can actually have access to it, as well as special events. We see brands like McDonald's, Starbucks, Sweetgreen helping users place an order. They're giving them direct deals and coupons, and of course payments. And of course the different types of engagements that the app is actually able to deliver to a consumer versus a web experience. So companies like L'Oreal and Adidas are using it for different ways, perhaps for makeups or designing new shoes. The app gives you real benefit of using and giving entertainment and value to that user. Next slide. So we'll go over a little bit of the benefits before we start the case study. So we talked about better user experience, and isn't it what we all look for? So both from a utility standpoint, the user is looking for real value to get from the app. As Nick mentioned, the app actually brings us back every single day. And then, of course, from an entertainment standpoint, we talked about the Nike, Adidas, and also the L'Oreal experiences from an entertainment standpoint. The app also provides us as a brand, a direct relationship with our users. It actually gives us a lot more control over the experience that they have been going through. So versus a web experience where we can have so much content in one page, we wouldn't really know where the user is going and what is he seeing, what is he engaging with. In an app experience, we have a lot more control on what the user is seeing. And then also a lot of research show that brand awareness and loyalty, that the app ecosystem just shows a lot more loyalty for the users. And then to finish with the benefits, definitely the data. Nowadays, brands are realizing that being able to connect the user identity to a mobile device ID and use that data and put it together into their CRM data as well as their cookie data, and to combine it all together really gives them access to create a more personalized experience to the users. We see brands like Amazon and Netflix doing such a good job with creating a more personalized experience. The app and the data that you can collect through that can really provide other brands with similar ways to tap into that. So we'll dive into the real estate brand lookalike campaign that we did. So what we were aiming to do here, and the reason we chose a real estate case study, is because most of the apps out there today are around gaming, entertainment, news, and social, again, just like Nick showed us. While real estate is kind of a new vertical within the app ecosystem that is being used, but definitely we see that as one of the basically leaders of paving the path to other verticals to go into the app ecosystem. So when we did this case study, we had a big challenge from the brand where they were trying to acquire new users on a cost per new lead, basically, for home sales. Basically, if you think about it, moving those users, as we talked before, the brand invests so much in the app. They want to get the users over there. Now we need to get the right users to get into our app and to engage with the content that we would like. Some of them are more performance oriented and they're looking to achieve a certain KPI. In this case, the brand was looking to get the user to actually fill in details for an agent regarding a home for a sale to reach out back to them. Next slide, please. So the way we did the lookalike campaign is, again, all based on apps. So we received from the brand 50,000 device IDs, so either advertising IDs for Google or IDFAs. And we matched them to our own database that it has just over 1 billion users today. We were able to match about 50% of those users. After we matched those IDs into our platform, we were able to identify just three apps that had the highest affinity for those users that made that transaction on the app. So basically, again, looking at users that filled a form to have an agent to contact them back regarding a house sale. So we took those IDs and we were looking for what are the top 3 apps that those users have on their device in order to target them. And we found that Chase Bank, Capital One, and Groupon were actually the 3 top apps that most of the users that made that transaction, they had those apps on their phone. After we took those IDs, we were able to target them on our platform. Just to give you some insights about the users and what we saw. So we saw over 70% match of the users that we have age and gender about. We saw 57% of the users were actually males versus 43% females. We also saw that the highest age was 25 to 34. And after that, 18 to 24. Overall, we found that the largest demographics was actually male with ages 35 and up. When we looked at the interest groups of those users, they were very much into tech and computers, especially audio. And then we also saw that they're into music, which is part of arts and entertainment. And we saw that they're actually into banking and finance, and last, also shopping. Next slide. From the publisher insights, during the first 30 days, we ran the campaign over 500 different publishers, ranging from several different categories. While you can see on the right-hand side, the top categories that we saw, definitely leading with entertainment, photography, media, and video. Next slide, please. And kind of to sum it up, the results were very good. And this was a very successful campaign for us using that data. So from performance and targeting on the user level, rather than testing just several different sources, we were able to reach 179% increase in post-install events. Again, the post-install event in this case was filling a form to have an agent reaching back to you regarding a sale. And then we also saw a 65% decrease on cost per form submitted. So definitely the brand was very happy with the campaign, and we were able to run this and still running this campaign with them. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Sinan. Yeah, I think that case study really brought some of the theories to life in terms of, how you can use all these research insights and data you gather from the apps to better understand your consumers and decide what kind of other apps or content would be relevant to them and what places to place your advertisement or content so that you can get more results. So I think this also leads into the next presentation very well, where Jason Denny, who is the SVP of operations for AdTheorent, and he will kind of tell us about how to create, once you figure out what platforms, what channels, or what kind of apps you want to get in front of your audience, but how do you create engaging advertisement and different user experiences to capture users' attention. So Jason?
Absolutely. Thanks, Eva, and thanks, Nick and Yinan to kick things off. And I think this is a great segue. I think we're starting off wrong slide there. Maybe we can check the next one. There we go. So in-app advertising, resonates for many reasons. I'll go over why. It's where the eyeballs are. Specifically, how consumers are open to branding, and then finally, how native device functionality works seamlessly within that branding experience. So next slide. I'm getting some talk back as well. I'm not sure if everyone's muted. Anyway, so where the eyeballs are. Next slide. As Nick pointed out, and within the data, we know that browser makes up about 10% of a user's experience, while apps in total make up about 90%. So apps is where people are spending their most time. But one thing we found within apps is that unlike browser experience, where people are usually using a browser to locate something quickly and moving on, time spent within apps are a lot larger. And because of that, you're able to build a brand relationship with your user. So 30 apps on a monthly basis is what on average consumers use, with a total of about 9 apps per day. And I want to talk a little bit first off about how to marry your brand with the right user experience. So I'm going to go over with 6 examples about how advertising in specific apps work, and then I'll move on to engaging apps. So we know that consumers are open to that brand message if it is the right message with the right content. So think of iMusic, for example, which is an app that allows you to set up playlists and listen to music. Things like Godiva as a brand, or a box of chocolates as a brand, delivered to someone who is in a holiday or festive spirit, would resonate very well with somebody. If you're using a weather app that uses location-based, you're able to target very well both road conditions, but specifically you'll notice here in this weather app, it's located in Manhattan. You're able to deliver the Met and an exhibit of a New York-centric experience. And then, as we know, sports is a very engaging app, and if you deliver the right content, such as Buffalo Wild Wings to a sports user, you're going to get a lot more engagement and interaction through both the app and that ad experience. I'm going to go quickly three other sort of examples. Funny apps such as iFunny, you can actually mirror what kind of content deliver a funny ad to engage within a funny experience. Tune in, an experience where you sort of know what your users are looking for. Someone listening to WNYC here in New York might be interested in both a car and auto insurance. And finally, a very specific app, such as speed testing, where someone is actually testing the speed of their internet access, just provides a very succinct brand message for anything internet, so internet societies or DSPs, in which somebody is specifically looking for that experience. All of these are available on OpenRTB, which is what our platform is built on. So we're able to really fine-tune and specify that app experience, and we found great success with that. So moving on to the next slide, it's also that rich media and engaged experience. So if you deliver the ad to the correct person, delivering compelling content will have them both have that user experience, very good user experience. For instance, vertical video, we found great success with user interaction, or the swipe up examples, where it takes action within that brand that you're interacting with. Location aware, I had mentioned the sort of weather app being location, but if you've engaged somebody in the right user experience and they're engaging with your brand, you can move that even farther into offering a map environment that chooses locations to actually show people are able to find both your location, look up your location, and walk in and purchase in the store. So if you have a higher engagement rate because you've mirrored that image or mirrored that ad experience to the right person, and they start engaging, we see a much higher lift in both brick and mortar sales and then things like online sales. Perfect. And then deep linking. We do know that the app engagement is a lot more powerful and sustaining. So if you can move somebody from a web environment into an app environment, we have something called Apptivation that does that seamlessly. So from web to app, if you have the app on your phone, it'll automatically pull up that app. And as Yinan just mentioned, the branded app experience is becoming more enriched, such as things like McDonald's, where you can find stores or deliver coupons and engage people in that in-brand app experience, which is also crucial. Next slide. And then some very sort of brand-specific and highly engaging rich media apps. We found great success in delivering very short video stackable content. So you show 3 very short videos and then ended by an end card. That way we know that your app experience is precious. So if you deliver short content and meaningful content to a user, they're more likely to engage in that ad experience. And then the unique thing about mobile usage and tablet usage is there's some inherent things that you can actually use within the device itself for your advantage. So once you've engaged the user into that experience, if you go to the next slide, you're able to really use the functionalities of the phone, like the gyroscope functionality. We found great success about providing 360 panable video that users can engage in. Next slide. And then we also talked about branded apps. So and then that app experience, we're able to seamlessly move between a rich media ad into both a branded ad that we could move somebody from, for this case, like a Fitbit example, but we're also able to link from that ad to other apps seamlessly as well. So interact in Instagram or any other mail or branded app, and really give the user a rich experience to enhance that app and ad experience. And then once you deliver that ad, again, if you give them more content and more things to engage with, you're able to have them choose what their ad experience is with it. And so someone may be prone to swipe what their favorite program is, and once they've decided and made that decision, they're able to move on to a more engaged audience. So if someone was interested in one of those shows, they're more likely to click on that show, engage in the app, be more familiar with or engaged in this rich media ad unit, move on to what they're more specifically interested in, and we see a great engagement rate within these rich media ad units. Next slide. And then combining them all together. One of our most successful ad campaigns was actually providing a rich media ad unit that used the gyroscope functionality to be able to move your phone in a 360 environment that used Apptivation to actually trigger and vibrate the phone in this experience. So in this ad campaign, which our user engagement rate was incredible, people were able to activate 360, jump out of an airplane, feel the phone react, and if we deliver this to the right person, they're actually going to have some sort of a gamification in the ad unit itself, which marries very well with an app experience. And yeah, just to recap, the app advantage is one, you have more consumers as we know, we have more engaged consumers because we're reaching the right audience and we're able to marry that app experience and user to that brand. And as we all know, this equals to happy marketers and happy brands at the end of the day.
Great. Thank you very much, Jason. And thanks to, yeah, those are some very fun user experiences. Definitely looking forward to kind of experience with them myself. And really appreciate all the speakers for sharing their insights. So we have a couple questions for you all. One question is for Nick. Actually, so it's very, yeah, I think the data on women as gamers really generated a lot of curiosity. And so it showed that women are more likely to play games than men. And the question is, did you look at the type of games that each gender plays, and are there any differences? Or is there more information about that in the research study in details?
Yeah, we did look at specific gaming categories. So, like I say, we looked at like our casual strategy games, the puzzle games, for example, and our report actually details out sort of the profile of people who use those games. I think from if memory serves me right, the games that were most sort of prevalent with women were the sort of the casual and the puzzle type games, more so than the strategy type based games.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Nick. And then another question for Yinan is that the case study on a real estate brand, I mean, you mentioned that you were able to find users who have affinity to that brand. Can you elaborate on how did that process work? I think that's what the question meant. I think you're on mute again.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so over the last 4.5 years, through our SDK on user's device, as a mobile insight driven company, we were able to understand what apps users have on their device. And by understanding correlations of users that have specific apps, we were able to tell those users have a higher affinity towards a specific category or a brand affinity. And then through that, we did some kind of reverse engineering by understanding, those users who made that transaction, they had the higher affinity towards Chase Bank, Capital One, and Groupon as well. And then finding the users that also have those apps, we're able to help us target those specific users.
Okay. Yeah, I think the follow-up there is that, so the way that you find affinity to the real estate app, is it because the users have, you're looking at the kind of users who have that particular app installed, or their competitors' apps installed, or just kind of looking at their data in general?
Yeah, so think about it from a standpoint of, let's say, a CRM. So that specific brand, they have the IDs of the users that completed a transaction within their app. Then we take those IDs and we find them on our platform. We were able to find 50% of the users that they sent us. And then with those users, we found what other affinities they have towards. And we use those affinities to find lookalike users to those users who completed the form for the brand that we work with.
Got it. Okay, great. Thanks, Ina. And then we have another question, I think, is for all of you, which is, anyone has insights on user data and statistics for health content apps? Sorry, it's just to complete the question, for example, like WebMD kind of apps. And this is a question for all the speakers.
This is Jason. I don't really have any specific health app data to share.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
Unfortunately, Bill, we're in the same position. We didn't focus specifically on health content and apps in that area.
Okay.
From my knowledge, and this is Inon here, from my knowledge, health is, it could be a bit problematic from more of a policy standpoint. I'm not sure if you're able to look on a specific app that the user has. That's kind of from what I know. So we don't have that knowledge on a specific app regards to health. If I'm not mistaken, from Google Play policy, you are able to look at it from a category standpoint, but there is no data that we have that I can share with you, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. So yeah, I think we can also take that as a follow-up as well. So with that, actually, that's all the questions we have. And I just wanted to point out that we have a webinar coming up on mobile monetizations for publishers. And so please definitely check it out on our website and sign up. And I think, again, I'll just follow up with a link to the recording so that everyone will have it. And with that, I wanted to thank our speakers today for sharing their valuable insights. And thank you all for your attention. And we'll see you soon at our future events. Bye.